Hey, what's going on? This is Shit Talk Reviews. My name is John. In the room with me today, Derek Showerhead. What's the word?
I've got a wheel. Just one wheel.
Just one. That's all you need, though.
That's right.
Yeah.
All you need is one wheel to be a charismatic leader.
That's right. That's right. With a seg like that.
A unicycle. Come into the room with a top hat and a unicycle and some licks and some riffs, and you're cooking.
I don't picture any of these guys on unicycles with top hats and monocles, but nonetheless, we're talking about the band Wheel today and their latest album, Charismatic Leaders. Great band, progressive metal band out of Finland, been around since 2015. This is their third release. They also dropped 2019 Moving Backwards, 2021 Resident Human, and of course now Charismatic Leaders. Incredible band. I found them in 2021 with Resident Human, and they are a prog band, and they are full of great talented players, and James is a great writer. James Lascelles, I'm not sure. Guitar and vocals. UC Turinen on guitar, great player, absolutely fantastic player, a tone monster. He's got great tones, and Santeri Saksala on drums, and he is a monster player himself. As I understand it, they are currently sans a bass player and in the market. So if you know anybody,
maybe you
put a hand up. It could be you. You don't know.
And what about you? You can play bass.
No, they're good. James played a lot of bass on this record, as I understand it. I think UC may have also played some bass on it too. But the bass on this record is really good. Well, what are your first thoughts on it anyway? Before we,
what I thought of, the first person I thought of was Alex Lifeson from Rush. All I could think about the whole time was if he had come up during the time where metal and prog were a little bit more of were the mainstream. It's kind of the way I think Wheel would sound. And
if James had come up then in
Alex Lifeson, Rush, from
right?
Rush.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I gotcha.
Rush might have sounded a lot like Wheel, and I'm sorry if I'm not making myself clear, but and James himself, what a talented dude, and I mean this in the most complimentary way. He sounds like Jared Leto of 30 Seconds to Mars meets Maynard James Keenan of Tool, and he's a
great singer.
And again, some people might laugh that's tuning into this podcast. Oh, you mentioned Jared Leto. Well, Jared Leto's a fairly talented guy. He was, though the new stuff that they write is god awful. I don't know what's going on with him, but he was a very talented singer in a pretty world renowned rock band. But I found James to be a perfect combination of the two, and he could slide into Tool or 30 Seconds to Mars and kill it. But he kills it with Wheel.
Yeah. That's one of the things I like about his vocal styling. He is a very melodic singer, but he can get growly and gnarly and nasty and maintain a level of melody with that grit, which is great. Because it took me a long time. Yeah, I'm still adjusting to a lot of the really guttural, hardcore, nasty vocals that are pretty prevalent in a lot of the stuff I listen to these days. It's taken me years to really get comfortable with it. And I think as far as like the vocal stylings anyway, that I really like, it's really more like James, to an extent, Spencer from Periphery, some melody in there can get nasty, can get heavy, can get ugly, but they maintain melody throughout. And James does that exceedingly well.
Percentage wise, what would you like to see melodic clear channel singing? Is it 60%, 70%, more, less?
I don't know that I'd put a percentage on it, but half and half would be fine. Because I love it when they get gnarly and nasty too. When a vocalist, really turns up, the sandpaper and gets ugly. But I also still enjoy some smoother melodics in there, and that's one of the reasons I like this band so much. Is he has found a great balance there, and the music that he writes is complicated, and he does a great job of laying vocal tracks over and in a style that fits the music. It's not too soft. I mean, yeah, I suppose he could be a more aggressive singer if he wanted, but I don't think it's warranted. I don't think that's his style, and that's fine because I think he does a great job, and it's a good match for the band. You'd put a higher percentage at growl over smooth, clean vocals, right?
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
sledgehammer vocals and gore. Again, I love Max Cavalera. I love Phil Anselmo. I love that style of vocalist. That being said, one of the notes I had on this record on Charismatic Leaders was I would like to hear more of the 2x4 to the testicles. It's still a really solid record. You can't deny the talent, you can't deny the songwriting. And again, I heard those three bands. I heard Rush, Tool meets 30 Seconds to Mars, but with a proggy overlay and a lot of the themes that is prevalent with modern prog. So look, there's nothing wrong with the record in my estimation. I think it's perfectly executed, and I can definitely see why you really, really like this record.
It's a comfortable record. I think it's a very thoughtful album. You know me, I'm not a lyrical content guy, but I know that he has a lot to say on this record. There's some interviews I watched. He is a thoughtful individual, and on the musical composition front, he writes the kind of stuff that I really dig. And the writing on this record, I think, is really, really strong.
Empire was just kicked off right away, and I instantaneously obviously thought of Rush, but Pink Floyd takes you on an odyssey, and Empire is a big, epic, long, introduction that takes you through a lot of sound. My only complaint on that was the drum sound. It sounded more like a cowbell on the record, on the track. But other than that, it's a melodic and an emotional, odyssey, and an odyssey and the Iliad, all those things. It's a big listen. And look, I was this morning driving down to where I go to work, 5 o'clock in the morning, and it was an emotional big listen for early in the morning. And I've been listening to it for a while, but I really, really wanted to give it a good listen. And it's intense for first thing in the morning. It's an emotional purge. But I got through the record, and I'm here to talk about it.
Here to tell the tale. Well, the Empire is a strong, heavy opener, and it's followed up by Porcelain, which is absolutely one of my favorites on the record. It's not the heaviest overall. It gets beefy, and it gets really spun up in the middle. But I just think his chord progressions in there are so beautiful and perfect, and he does these great moves with like half step chord progressions where he incorporates both like major and minor scales in there together. And it can just one half step note change can change the entire emotional feel of what's going on, and he does that a lot in that song. So that one stands out to me. I think the production on the record is great, and it really jumped out on me on that track. Fun fact for the guitar players out there, he used a baritone guitar on that track, and I think it was drop G, which is a really, really low tuning for a 6-string guitar. And you can feel it when it spins up there about halfway through. So it's worth it if you're a big break kind of cat.
It's funny. Porcelain was the one track that I found to be frustrating.
Really?
And yeah. And I had a note here that I kept feeling like I was getting my junk played with. and then left alone. I'm like, hey, I want to do what I need to do here. And there was no doing. It just, it kind of left me dry. It just ended. Just sort of stopped. I mean, there was a little bit of the beefier part in the middle, but it wasn't the, it wasn't the beef that I was looking for.
Well, you're not right. I mean, sorry,
Yeah.
by comparison to the rest of the record, you're right. It is, with the exception of Caught in the Afterglow, the guitar interlude, the sixth track. Porcelain is overall a calmer, more peaceful bit of music than the rest of it. So I get that. I respect your opinion.
Well, I'm glad. Submission, epic, 10 minutes and 46 seconds of showing off.
Yeah.
Like, hey, fucking, you're trapped. You're going to listen to our musical chops. We are going to prog you over the head, and you're going to like it. And we're going to show you how fucking good we are as players. And I loved it. I loved it. And by that point, the sun was rising in the morning, and it was just I was weaving through traffic. I had hit my stride. But yeah, Submission was very, very cool. Epic song.
Yeah.
Epic.
Yeah. They do some really cool stuff there. Like the guitar riff, the main theme guitar riff in that song it's moving. It's not that it's a super fast song, but it's a moving guitar riff. And Santeri does this thing where he plays more of a halftime feel snare, where it feels like it slows it down, even though the guitar riff is moving along. And I think that's one of the great things that is kind of ubiquitous with progressive rock and progressive metal, is the use of polymeters and different instruments playing in different times. And Wheel is phenomenal at that. But yeah, that it's a big epic track, and there is just a ton of cool shit in there. I'm a big fan of it. And you're right, it is 10 minutes of we are Wheel and we are awesome. Here, sit and watch us for a minute.
Yeah, it's it's like watching, like Mike Tyson's like, I'm gonna go beat the shit out of someone. Now watch it. Great, it's a great track. Saboteur. My favorite track. It's the heaviest track.
Very chuggy.
Great mix of the before mentioned bands. Loved it. Put it on repeat a couple times this morning. Really, really like that track a lot.
Monstrous bass tone on that song. Huge. Like I said, a really chuggy, riffy track. Great. I love the ending. Had like that triplet flavor as it rolled out. Great song. Disciple. The string intro on that was really unexpected, and it was very short, so it's not like some 3-minute string intro or whatever. It comes in, says what it needs to say, and moves out, which I think was very cool. So, had kind of a similar feel to a Submission with that like halftime snare work that Santeri does, but the guitar keeps your head bobbing through it. I like that one too. Caught in the Afterglow. Just 112, a cool kind of, again, unique acoustic guitar interlude. James was interviewed and said that when they recorded that, they put UC out in the garage at the studio and had a kind of various ambient mics placed all around to capture that kind of raw sound, and that you can hear there was a train that was going by in the distance. So I've not yet found it. He says you can hear it in there. So maybe you got to put on the good headphones to hear it. But yeah.
Well, you have the gear, so you should find that train.
I should. I will let you know when I find it. If I find it before we post this, I'll timestamp it.
Yeah, timestamp it for sure. Yeah, I've already talked about my favorite tracks. What were yours?
Porcelain really stuck out to me. This record is a little heavier than their other two. Which I love. I think that's great. So it's kind of ironic that I like one of the not softer but softer tracks on their heaviest record to date. But Porcelain is great, and The Freeze is a great song too. And it's another big, long, epic, prog metal journey. I think Santeri's drumming in that is out of control. I know he improvised and they recorded the first take for a good portion of the drums in that song. They have been open about saying that they compiled bits from other takes to put the whole track together, but that huge sections of all this jazzy improv stuff that he was doing was all captured on the first take as it just came off the top of his head. So credit to his drum work on that. So yeah, as far as standouts, Porcelain and The Freeze for me. I think it's great.
Yep. Submission and Saboteur were my two standouts. I really like Empire too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great record. Well, what's your number? Let's put a number on it.
Yeah, I went 8. It's it's not my cup of tea, as you know. But I can appreciate everything about this record through and through. Production quality is absolutely fantastic. I love the it felt like a raw record that they put together and then really put the the finishing touches on. It's kind of like if somebody makes like the gourmet cakes and then they really tie it together with some really nice frosting and some designs and everything else. It just was a tasty record, all the way through. And I also did appreciate the lyrical content. I'm not going to get into it. And Dave often reads lyrics, but it is an honest. I think the word purge, is I think it was an honest purge, and that's what a lot of metal is. It's just getting out whatever you need to get out or whatever you have to say. And appreciated that as well.
Yeah, I gave it an 8.5. Production was great. I think the songwriting was really super solid. The performances are all great. They obviously took the time to get it right. And then I think like you said, the details on the back end, it feels like a really refined record to me. They didn't just throw a microphone in the middle of the garage and hit record for an hour.
And when I say raw, let me clarify the statement.
I know it for the record. I know exactly what you mean.
You can tell that they threw some, jam parts in there and were like, that's fucking great. I like it. It fits. You can tell. Yeah.
So big record. They are on Inside Out Music, which is, I believe, under the Century Media umbrella. They are they just wrapped up a North American tour leg, if I'm not mistaken. They will be all over the place in Europe later in the year. I regretfully they were in Orlando, and Traverser, a band out of Orlando, a phenomenal prog metal band out of Orlando, opened up for them, and regrettably missed that show. So if you have a chance to see them, go see them. They replicate live as well as they do on the album. So it's I understand that they are not to be missed if you can.
Good to know.
Yeah. Very good. Well, as always, this is a pleasure. And if you've stuck around with us this far, we appreciate you hanging. And hit the likes and the subscribes and the bells and all that. And we'll yap more here in a couple of days, Derek.
Sounds good.
Beautiful. We'll see ya.